offense forgiven, but access denied. If you were truly apologetic, conviction would have changed your behavior. You like doing the same things that you've always done. Do you? Anywhere but over here. This is Bedtime Stories, Grown-Up Edition, Poetic Justice, Part 19. When we left off, Natalia had made it clear that her life was sucker-free and she wanted it to remain that way. Maribel had decided to rise to the occasion, but when she and Donovan got to the inpatient treatment facility, Porsha had refused to see them and then tried to off herself. And Idra had attempted to prepare the Queen Mother for the family meeting at Donovan's house, where she planned to reveal to her entire family all that she'd been up to. If you recall, 2 weeks earlier, the Queen Mother had asked Idra to hang around. She'd already planned to confess all to her children. But when Maribel told Angela that Donovan was going to do the talk at the inpatient treatment facility, her plans changed. And after she and Maribel got into that little tussle, Donovan had asked her to delay sharing his truth with the entire family until after he was able to get a handle on things with Maribel. But Maribel skipped town. Idra had already got the tap that Manny was in St. Lucia with his sister, Nadia. He'd also learned about Anand's death. So in lieu of staying in Texas, he decided to head back to St. Lucia. He'd known Emmanuel Lopez for a long time. And now that he had an answer for the tension that he'd seen between Manny and his sister, he had a vested interest in preventing one of his closest friends from blowing his whole life up and taking his sister down with him. Idra knew better than most just how disastrous things could be when a man like Manny, with his degree of power, his history of mental illness, and the battles that he knew that his friend had overcome where other women were concerned in relation to his marriage. Idra, Samuel, and Nigel knew versions of one another that their wives, children, and other family members just couldn't know. If you've got cradle to the grave friends, then you already know what I'm talking about. You know things about them and they know things about you that you're both committed to taking to the grave. Things that even if y'all fell out tomorrow, you still wouldn't tell a soul. And they know things about you that you might not be embarrassed about or ashamed of. But they're still not things that you would call your mother on the phone and tell her. And they're not things that you would want somebody to tell your children either. We all keep some things close to the vest, if nothing else, to protect the image that those we love have of who we are. Not because we feel like we need to lie to them, not because we want to fool them, but because as dedicated as we are to the role of wife or husband, mother or father, son or daughter, we're still individuals, spiritual beings having a human experience. No one person can know every version of you. And even if you tried to show them all of the facets of who you are, you'd still fall short. So Idra knew a version of his best friend that his wife and children did not know. And he needed to get back to St. Lucia before his sister met that version. He arrived just in time to help his sister plan the funeral of her husband and her only son. And in the midst of that, he needed to have a conversation with his best friend. A few days after he arrived, he walked into the drawing room of his sister's home and found her in Manny's arms. She was crying and he was there to comfort her. With her head turned, she had no idea that Idra had even came into the room. So Idra said, "I'm gonna wait for you out back. I'll give you a few minutes. We need to talk, bro." When Manny came out back, Idra said, "You're a grown man with grandkids." Manny said, "Exactly. So whatever speech you was planning on giving, save it." Idra said, "I can't do that. That's my sister." Manny said, "And if you can't tell, she grown too." Idra said, "You're married. You just made her a widow. She's getting ready to bury her husband and her son, both of whom are dead at your hand. Do you really think it's a good idea?" Manny said, "What? That I be her friend? That I be here to support her? To listen to her, hold her while she cries, and stare intently while she signs about all the life I missed with her and my son? Is there someone else who should be here doing that? You didn't miss anything. You had a front row seat. I didn't." Idra said, "And if I could trust you to just keep it friendly, if you could assure me that you have the self-control required to keep it respectful and platonic, I wouldn't be trying to have this conversation with you." Manny said, "I can't reassure you about anything. All I can tell you is I'll be here for as long as she needs me and for as long as she'll have me. And when I know that she's okay." Idra said, and you know that your position in her life is secure. You'll go back to business as usual. You'll go home. You'll lay in the bed next to your wife every night and count the days until you can be in hers again. Manny said, maybe, maybe not. All I can promise is that I'm committed to remaining Marisol's husband until she or I take our last breaths. I've upheld that commitment all these years, despite the fact that I never stopped loving your sister. I'm sure that I will love her until I take my last breath. Idra asked, does she know what your intentions are? Manny said, she knows that I'm here for her. I didn't think it was appropriate to discuss the totality of what that can look like until after her husband and her son are in the ground. Idra asked, and there's nothing that I can say. Manny said, if there was nothing that Marisol could say, you gotta know there ain't another person in this world other than Nadia who can make me live without her. Idra said, but Manny said, I don't care what that sounds like. I don't care how anybody else feels about it. Nobody cared how I felt about it. Not your father, not Big Sam, not my parents, not Bella, not Marisol. The 5 families came first, and all we did was follow their lead. I don't know how much time I got left on this earth, but I'm not spending whatever time I have left with regrets instead of hanging around here trying to control what your grown sister does. You should be back in Texas getting your woman back because you spent too many years of your life letting another man have what was yours. Then Idra decided to mind his business. Somebody was going to get hurt, and while he didn't want it to be his sister, she was old enough to know better than to get romantically involved with another woman's husband. And she should have sense enough to know that Marisol didn't survive as the kingpin's wife for all of those years without having some slap-a-hoe in her. So if Nadia wanted to bark up that tree, she'd better have some good tweezers, because Marisol was going to put some splinters in her behind. And Nadia would have to be a damn fool to even think that her best friend Bella could be counted on to help her get him out, because Bella couldn't stand for a broad to play sideline. So Idra stayed in St. Lucia until the funeral was over, and a few days after that, just in case his sister was going to need her big brother. He figured that if she did the right thing, she'd clearly be in distress, and she'd need comfort, encouragement, and someone to applaud her decision. But when 4 days passed after the funeral and Emmanuel Lopez was still in St. Lucia, Idra knew what was up. His sister had chosen to go in the lion's den, and he decided to exit stage left. A few days later, 2 weeks after the round table, after Idra and the Queen Mother finished discussing how the Queen Mother would handle the family meeting later on that night, Idra asked the Queen Mother if she talked to her best friend since the funeral. And the Queen Mother said, I did, and she a damn fool. I'm not going to interfere. I'm going to mind my business, because I love her and I love Marisol. But your sister gonna be singing a different song when Marisol get her head back on straight. When she stopped feeling guilty about not confessing all to Manny a long time ago and remembers who the hell she is and flies to St. Lucia and puts her foot up her behind. Idris said, my sentiments exactly. Meanwhile, over at the hospital, Porsha's been assessed and Donovan has finally been able to bully his way into her hospital room. He's talking, but it's clear that Porsha is not listening. Donovan said, talk to me, P. How we get here from the cabin? Well, we walked out of there and we was on the same page. We was going to be parents together and friends. You was going to focus on building the life that you want with Christ. You was going to remain open to loving and being loved in a way that's mutually beneficial. You was going to respect my decision to be with Maribel. How you lose sight of all that, P? Get no response, Donovan said. This little stunt you pulled ain't changed nothing. If anything, you just made everything worse. Don't you want to be a free woman in your own place? Calling me on the phone and telling me it's time. Having me come scoop you and take you to the hospital so you could deliver the baby. Instead of being institutionalized and transported by ambulance with a patient aide watching you the whole time. You don't want to give birth under them circumstances. You telling me you really wanted to die and take our baby with you? Porsha finally said, I just wanted the pain to stop, Donovan. You don't understand what I'm going through. Yeah, I agreed to all that stuff. But there was no part of my mind that actually thought that woman would be stupid enough to marry you, knowing that you and I were having a baby. Then I get shot, your mother hides me, and y'all get married because you think I'm dead. Donovan said, we didn't get married because I thought you was dead. We got married because I love her. Porsha said, but she wouldn't have married you if she would have known that I was alive and pregnant. Donovan said, maybe, maybe not. But I wasn't letting her go because you was pregnant. You knew that. Porsha said, and I also knew that you couldn't make her stay. You wasn't going to kidnap her and hold her hostage. Donovan said, okay, fine. So she left me, and then what? Porsha said, and then I would have been your only option. Donovan said, and that don't sound ridiculous to you? That's not just as ridiculous as kidnapping and holding somebody hostage. Why would you want to be with somebody that you got to force? Why you want to be second choice when there's somebody out there who would make you their first choice? How many ways can I tell you that I love you as a friend? And even if it's not Maribel, it still won't be you. One day we're going to have to explain to our child that we made a conscious decision to create him or her and parent him or her together. The story should be that we wanted him, that we loved her, and we were mature enough to know that we weren't the people for one another, and that was okay. Porsha said, but you're my person, Donovan. Donovan said, I can't be. Your person would choose you, B. If you can't live in the realm of reality, this is never gonna work. Even if I wanted you, it wouldn't work. Because if you're gonna lie to yourself about this, how many other things are you gonna lie to yourself about? Making me responsible to convince you that they're not true. I don't want that kind of responsibility, P. Other people shouldn't have to be responsible for reining you in, for pulling you back from the edge. You've got to get to a place where you, God, and a good therapist can pull your head out of the clouds, keep your mind stable, so that you can show up in situations rational, independent of anyone else's influence. Otherwise, you're going to be hard-pressed to be the kind of mother you say you want to be, or to ever have the kind of relationships you say you want to have. You got to get right, P. Not for me, not even for this baby, but for you. You got to live, and other people can't be responsible for keeping you alive. I can't be your life support, and neither can this baby. Porsha asked, how do I do that, Donovan? How do I just live without a reason, without a tether, without having you, somebody, to make it worth it? Because if it's not going to look how I want it to, then why should I even continue living? Donovan said, you need to pray, Porsha. You need to ask God to show you the purpose for which you were created in the first place. Ask him to show you how he can use all the things that you've been through, all the things that you've done, all the things you've survived to make you, your life, and the lives of people that you encounter better. How he can use everything that was meant for evil for your good and his glory. Ask him to show you all the wonderful things about who you are and to teach you how to love you. Instead of worrying about loving me and trying to get me or anybody else to love you, you focus on loving you. Because when you love you, you don't do stuff like you did today. You don't kidnap people and hold them hostage in cabins either. And you don't proposition married men to sleep with you. If you put all that energy into just loving you, you'll get better. Your life will get better. Porsha asked, will you help me with that? Donovan said, no. You need to be independent of me, Porsha. You need to use the resources that you already have. If the facility ain't good enough, we'll find you another one. But you've got to take control of your life, of your mind. And if there's any part of your treatment team that's not working for you, you need to communicate that. Porsha said, the facility is fine. The treatment team is fine. You're just asking me to do stuff that nobody's ever asked me to do, Donovan. You know my story. You know my life. You are the only person who's ever asked or expected me to be any better than I've been, to do anything differently than the way I've always done it. And I don't know how to do any of the things that you asking without you. Donovan said, well, having me there to cheer you on is gonna have to be enough, because I can't be more than your friend, Porsha. Porsha said, and your wife is gonna let you be my friend. Donovan said, my wife not gonna let you play in her face. She not gonna trust you. She's probably never gonna let her guard down. Can you blame her? But as long as I'm willing to support you, she's willing to support me. And I can't ask for any more than that. Neither can you. I got a woman that loves my children like they're her own. And she's willing to love this baby. We've been sitting in the waiting room for hours, P. Porsha said, she came with you? Donovan said, yes. She sat with me. She even advocated for you with the doctors. And she prayed with me while I prayed for you and our baby. Porsha said, she either dumb as hell or she really love you. Donovan said, ain't nobody ever accused that woman of being dumb. She's one of the smartest women I've ever known. And I love her with everything in me. Now that she's finally mine, I ain't letting her go. I'm not letting you or anybody else get between us. The woman went to blows with my mother over this. Porsha said, your mother scares me. Something tells me that your wife lost that fight. Donovan said she did. And considering how she put them paws on you in that shower, you should realize that neither my wife or my mother are the kind of women you want to play with. Neither of them trust you. And I can just about guarantee that when they get back on the same page, you ain't going to be able to get nothing past either one of them. So your best bet is to work on you. When Donovan and Porsha finished talking, Porsha had agreed to a one-on-one conversation with Maribel after Porsha was released from the hospital and back at the inpatient treatment facility. And then Donovan and Maribel headed back to their house to get ready for the family meeting, where Donovan hoped that he'd be able to get the two most important women in his life back on the same page so that they would be able to keep an eye on Porsha. Unfortunately, it did not go as planned. All of the adults in the family were gathered. Donovan and Maribel, Q and Angela, LJ and Regina, Stephanie and Corey, Salima and Wise, Anya and Ron, and even Renni by video. And when the Queen Mother told the whole family that Porsha was alive and the lengths that she'd gone to keep that fact a secret, everybody looked at Donovan and Maribel. They were all relieved to hear that Maribel had decided to stick it out. Angela was glad that Porsha had survived her attempt and that she'd agreed to continue her coaching sessions with Angela. And Anya was appalled to hear that the Queen Mother and Maribel had had a fist fight. Anya signed, Medea, you couldn't understand why she was upset? The Queen Mother said, of course I did. But that did not give her the right to disrespect me. Anya signed, under the circumstances, you don't think that you could have taken the high road? And the Queen Mother said while signing, well, I wanted to take the high road, but somewhere in there I took a wrong turn. Ended up turned around and barreling straight ahead, right to where she had me effed up at. Now, Maribel, I apologize for giving you precisely what you asked me for. But as long as you agree not to play with me ever again, it won't ever happen again. Maribel said, offense forgiven, but access denied. The same way I couldn't control how you responded to what you saw as disrespect, you don't get to pick the consequences of violating me. Stephanie said, so you gonna hold a grudge? Maribel said, I'm not holding a grudge. I'm just not interested in having my life turned into a never-ending re-entry program. She did what she did and she slept well at night. I didn't even hear from her. And just like now, I'm sure that there have been plenty of times in her life where she should have and needed to apologize to someone long before it got to this point. And whether she did or didn't isn't really any of my business. What is my business, though, is the fact that she looked me right in my face and told me that she would not apologize for lying to me, for hiding Porsha and manipulating my life. The Queen Mother said, well, I apologize. Maribel said, if you were truly apologetic, conviction would have changed your behavior. So as much as it hurts, despite how much you have always meant to me, I'm not physically, mentally, spiritually, or emotionally safe with you. And that means that I'm done with you. Being in my life is a privilege, not a right. You're entirely too old to still be playing these same games. And I have no reason to expect that you're going to change now. You like doing the same things that you've always done, the same way that you've always done them. Who am I to stop you? Do you? Anywhere but over here. So unless you have any other secrets you'd like to reveal, I'd like you to leave my home now. The Queen Mother said, oh, you put me out. Donovan, you gonna let her? Donovan said, Medea, my wife asked you to leave our home. The Queen Mother said, Donovan said, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and his mother and be joined to his wife. The Queen Mother said, and the two shall become one flesh. Well, okay then, son. I can't say that I like it, but I've never been more proud of you in my life. I've never been more proud of either of you. And if y'all keep that energy, y'all be just fine.